Hello friends, SentinalhMC here, back for more of our ChromatiCraft tutorial series. So in the previous episode we went ahead and built ourselves a ritual table. Now I do need to correct a few things. The reason that this ritual table looks different than a normal one isn't because of any, it's because of my progression. It's not because this is what it will look like when it's up and running. Apparently when you get to a certain point in the progression, your ritual table makes itself look cooler, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so you know your ritual table ain't gonna look like this right when you first get it. Okay, all right. So I've got some more abilities. I went ahead and gave myself the first 4 abilities under pylon casting right here. So you scroll to the bottom so that you can get to the rituals, the abilities, and we've got this first row right here. Okay, so we're gonna go through these. We're going to take a look at them and their different levels and, you know, show you how to use them. And then you can figure out, you know, what you want to use them for. But I already have a feeling of what several of these are going to be good for, especially the first one. Obvious. This one's obvious. So, a first ability that we're going to take a look at is called Reach Boost. Let me go open the page for it. It's pretty straightforward as far as, you know, what it does. It improves the range at which you can interact with blocks. Other mods have some methods of doing this, although none of them are as crazy as this. All right, it does have some limitations. You're not able to attack things from a ridiculous range. That would be weird, crazy. And you can't open GUIs, so you won't be able to interact with machines from like a really far distance. But you will be able to place and break blocks, and that's going to be really useful, especially while building. Which is, you know, the main thing that I would probably end up using it for. That way you don't have to run, you know, keep building scaffolds. You can just build your house from the ground, as long as you can get the right angle on stuff anyway. So I'll go ahead and turn it on. So Reach Boost is, you know, this very first one right here. As you can see, it's got 0 through 6 right here. So again, oh, by the way, if you forgot, the way that you open this menu is by pressing the middle mouse button by default. So here we have Reach Boost. And you'll see there's this meter, and this is the power level that we're going to be setting. And we can increase or decrease this by pressing the W and S keys, or up and down. Oh, and it should also be mentioned that you can actually scroll through this list by using the home and end keys. So if we press end, it'll take us all the way to the end of the list, and if we press home, it takes us to the beginning of the list. So you can navigate through it a bit faster. You can also, and you just use left and right. So A and D, or the left and right arrow keys to scroll through the list. So this is going to set the range that this is going to use. So for starters, I'll just press space to set it using its default range, so 0. We're not going to set any extra levels. And you can see that there's this distance meter that appears in the middle of our screen. It shows us what block we're looking at and how far away that block is. Of course, this is necessary because otherwise, once you get to a long distance, it's going to be really hard to tell what you're looking at. So if we slowly move our cursor closer, we can see that at about, here's a piece of grass at 8 meters, and it's got this little box around it. It means we're able to interact with that. So we can punch it and break it. But that block over there at like 9.7 meters, we can't interact. Let's look straight. So yeah, we can interact with things at about 8 meters with the default setting, which is, you know, quite a bit longer than usual. And it lets you know if you can, and it shows you which block that you're looking at with a cool outline. Really neat. So we'll go back into the menu, turn that off, and then we'll increase the power by 1, and I'll show you what this does. It basically just increases the distance, okay? So at 0 we can do 8, and at 1 we can go to about 11. Yeah, about 12. So just about 12, which is neat, 12 blocks away. And we'll go ahead and turn that off and go up to 2, and we'll take a look at that. 2 will take us from 12, and it goes to about, it looks like 16. But the higher this goes, the larger the increases become. All right. So if we go all the way up to 5, and we start punching things, let me just sort of fly up here a long ways, because I want to be able to show you what we got here. So if I fly up, we can see that I'm still able to interact with that block, even though I'm getting like really high. The reason for that is that level 5 actually lets you interact with blocks that are up to like I think 124 blocks away. Yeah, well, that's actually even more. So about 129 meters is what I was able to punch. And the maximum range on this, let me stop flying. The maximum range on this, if we go all the way up to rank 6, is actually 256 blocks. Now if that sounds crazy, it's because it is. In fact, I think if I look out this direction, my render distance will actually not be that long and I won't be able to do it. But like 256 blocks is what we're talking about with this ability at maximum power, which is crazy. Now remember, this does use power, obviously. It uses Asvesti. Dang it, I can't remember the names anymore, but it uses lime green, the light gray, the dark gray, and the purple. I can't remember the names. Zambaru is the purple one, and Ikri is the gray one. So Asvesti, Ikri, and Zambaru. I got a little icon in my upper left corner showing me those, and it's got a big warning symbol on it, which I think means I don't have a lot of them. So it's kind of like, I think it's that might be warning me that my power level on those is kind of low. If I look at this, I can see that my pie pieces are not very filled, but that's because my cap keeps increasing. But if you look at that, you can see, so I've got I got a bit of every power, but of course, if you're in survival mode, you're actually going to be using that power. I'm in creative mode, so it doesn't use any power. But yeah, pretty sick ability. I can't really think of any situations where I would really turn it up as high as it can go. But there's definitely times, especially when building, that I might want to crank it up to 3 and be able to work on blocks that are about like, I forgot what 3 is actually. Okay, about 32 blocks away. I could see that. Myself using that, but of course you might have a use for being able to punch things that far away, place and break blocks that far away. Anyway, this is definitely the most powerful reach extender I've ever seen in Minecraft. I mean, being able to affect blocks 256 blocks away is pretty darn crazy. Still, that's really, really awesome. So let's move on from reach boost, and we'll go to this next one, which is magnetism. Now, if you've watched our Revolution series with Shiva, he's used this quite a bit, and so you may already know what this does. And it's also pretty obvious by the name. What magnetism does is it picks up blocks for you when they're close enough. So if I throw this dirt away, it gets sucked right back to me. So really, really useful if you're mining, and especially if you're mining at the edge of a chasm where your drops might fall away from you. This will pull them to you. Now, if I go ahead and turn this off, no, that's the wrong thing. If I go ahead and turn this off, I'm going to throw a bunch of blocks down in here, in this hole. And then I'm going to go ahead and cover the hole up, right? So now there's blocks down there. There's blocks down there, but they're blocked by blocks. If I activate magnetism and get rid of my dirt, we can see that we're not actually getting the dirt. The dirt isn't actually coming to us. If I break this block, wait a second, where'd my dirt go? Oh, maybe the dirt did come to me. All right. But what I'm trying to do is demonstrate one of the effects of this here. So let's go ahead and turn this off, and we'll grab dirt and okay, here we go. Granite. We'll throw a bunch of granite in there. Throw all my granite in there. So now there's a bunch of granite in there, and then we'll cover this over with a bunch of blocks, a couple blocks thick. All right. So now I don't have any granite, and we're gonna go ahead and turn this back on. Boop. Oh, there's the granite. Look, it's trying to get to me, but there's blocks, in the way. So if I go ahead and turn this off, and then I crank the power up and turn it on, what this is supposed to do is make blocks ignore clipping. Although this is going weird. The granite it's being strange. Is it because I'm in creative mode? I don't know. Oh, there's the blocks. That was weird. But yeah, there's a no clip effect that occurs when you turn the power up, so that the blocks are able to come to you regardless of what's in the way, which is pretty neat. It was weird how the granite was just bouncing around. But yeah, I mean, obviously, if I was in survival mode, what this would allow me to do is I can just punch things, break blocks, and the blocks will just come to me, which could be very useful in conjunction with a reach boost, because obviously if you're using reach boost, you're breaking blocks that are far away, and so they're not going to be like in range to come to you to be able to get them. But with magnetism, they'll come right to you, and you'll be able to get them. See? They're flying up, they're coming to me, I'm getting the dirt, even though I'm way over here breaking the blocks. So these two definitely have a lot of synergy. If you're going to use reach boost for mining, I would definitely recommend adding magnetism. Alright, magnetism is pretty cool. But you gotta be careful, and you gotta remember when you have it on, because there's probably going to be situations where you want to drop blocks, especially if you're trying to do stuff like making boosting shards by dropping things in liquid chroma or something. If you have magnetism on and you try and drop stuff on the ground, it's going to be like, hey, it's not working. Well, that's why magnetism is picking it back up. So make sure you keep that in mind and remember if you have it on. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and talk about this next one. Now this next one's a bit dangerous because it goes off as soon as you select it. So be really careful with it and make sure that you're not, let me go back into creative mode. Make sure that you're not, that you're standing near what you want to destroy before you turn this on. So I'm going to head and stand right here. There's like a big hunk of pitch blende and stuff here from endstone that fell from a meteor. And if I go into my menu here, and it's like, this is Sonic Blast is what this is. If I go into my book, we didn't look at the entry for magnetism either. This is the entry for magnetism. It protects the items that are being transported from things like lava. So magnetism is also a great idea if you're mining around lava. That way your items won't fall into it and break. It also draws in experience orbs from a larger range, which is really cool. A couple more uses there. Now, Sonic Blast. It creates a shockwave that clears blocks. It's what it does. It's pretty straightforward. You open the menu, select this, and then give it a certain amount of power. Okay, so it does nothing if we do it at 0. If we do it at 1, it makes like a little sound when you use it. Let me stand over here. Oh, there we go. It broke a block right next to me, see? But that's not really very useful. It's not a very large range. If we crank it up, we can see that it broke more blocks. Crank it up to 3, and it breaks even more blocks. So see, it's breaking a hole around us. There's actually quite a bit there. Pretty cool. And if we keep cranking it up, the higher we go, the more blocks it breaks. That's pretty obvious. So let's stand over here. In fact, let's stand right here next to this wall. And we'll go ahead and crank it all the way up to 12. Which takes a bit to render because it breaks a ton of blocks. Look at that. Look at the size of that hole. So it destroys blocks in an area around where you're standing. Alright, so you can see it dug into the wall as well as into the floor. And it breaks everything. And it drops everything too. It's not like TNT. It's not an actual explosion per se. It appears to be scanning the area and selecting the area and deleting the blocks. Well, not deleting them, but breaking them. So it breaks the blocks, but it's not an explosion. So you're not going to be able to use this to do things like that require explosions. Like, what is that mod where you have to throw some singularities from Applied Energistics too, where you've got to throw stuff into a hole and then hit it with some TNT. Then you're not going to be able to use this for that. And then Botania has those entropinium flowers that generate mana when they're next to an explosion. This ain't going to work either. So this is not an explosion in how Minecraft calculates it. It's just clearing out the blocks and giving you all the drops, which is still really, really cool and really useful. Now, it's important to note that if you're actually using this without being in creative mode, this is going to take power, right? So if we go in here and we look at Sonic Blast, oh, I thought it would tell me. No, I got to go into crafting mode. Sonic Blast requires Kuro and Katrino, right? So you're going to need a lot of that if you're going to actually be using this. So let's go into survival mode and we'll see how much do we have. I've got a lot of it, so it's probably going to work. but I would imagine that at a certain point you wouldn't be able to go up anymore if you didn't have the power for it. So there we go. We broke some blocks, and if we look, yep, it definitely used up Katrino and Kuro. So I've got you'll have less of it. I have less of it now. So yeah, I imagine clearing an area this size is going to take quite a lot of power. So you know, you're probably not going to be able to just use it all the time, but definitely useful if you want to clear an enormous area like this in one go. That's a really big hole. Is it actually, I think, maybe 12 blocks wide? Let's see. This is like the center. Let's see. So this would be the center of that. Let's try and see how wide this is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yep. So what it basically appears to be doing is making a hole, clearing an area, the radius, the length that you set the power for. So when I set it to 12, it does appear to have broken to have made a hole that's has a radius of 12, not counting the center. Yep. So this will make a hole up to 25 blocks across and high. So be very careful using this. Make sure you remember that it goes off as soon as you select it. If you're standing in your base and you select this ability and you forget that it'll go off immediately, congratulations, you just put an enormous hole in your base or potentially broke the entire thing. So be really careful with this ability. Don't accidentally select it when you're going across, but at least it doesn't do anything when you're at 0. So it's hard to accidentally select this because you have to give it some power. Be really careful with this because it's really strong. So you can make a very large hole and mine out a lot of resources really quick with this Sonic Blast. Really cool. And now we're going to go on to this one. Now this is the most complicated ability. These other ones are actually, you know, they're pretty straightforward and pretty simple to use. This one's got a few rules that you need to remember when you use it. It's called a world shift, and what it does is allow you to move chunks of the world. So I've been experimenting over here, so you can see these bits of world that have been moved around. So here's how it works. If we go into here and we go down to world shift, we'll first take a look at the power that you need. Nope, that's Sonic Blast. World shift requires 3. It requires Zvesti, Ruskia, and Katrino. So you're going to need each one of these if you want to use it. Go in here and select world shift. It allows you to move regions of terrain, although it says that more complex blocks tend to get left behind. So I assume what that means is that you're not going to be able to use world shift to cheat various game systems by allowing you to do stuff like move pylons. Although I didn't actually ask Reika about that, but I would assume that you can't move pylons. Probably can't move repeaters either. In fact, let's test that. So here's how this works. You need to look in the direction that you want the blocks to move when you select world shift. So in this example, I'm looking. If I look north, all right. So if I look north, then any blocks that I use this ability on, they're going to move north. All right. So let's go ahead and so you got to look in the direction you want the blocks to move when you select it. So you can look in any of the 4 directions as well as up or down. In fact, it might be easier to demonstrate if I look up. So let me look straight up and select the ability. So now you see that the little picture is on the right hand side. That lets you know you've got the ability selected. Now you got to remember which direction you looked when you used it. In this case, I looked straight up. So now what I need to do is select the blocks that I want to move. So the way that I do that, quite simply, is by selecting the cuboid. So if I... Oh, let me grab my... I don't know if you need to use the manipulator, but you probably need to at least use an empty hand for this. So let's see. If I right-click... Oh, actually, I just screwed it up. We'll select this. We'll turn it up to 1. Select this. Right-click on this block. Right-click on this block. And now you can see that this line of blocks have moved. Now I think I was actually looking down when I did that. But it's gonna... Okay, so the way that it works is that if the blocks are moved into the space of other blocks, it just replaces it with air. So you can end up deleting blocks by using this. But let me go ahead and look straight up. See, even I'm having difficulty using it because I keep forgetting the rules. See, I didn't have any power set, so I didn't do anything. We'll go up by 3. Now the setting here is how far you want the blocks to move. So if I select this area, we can see that they moved up by 3. Pretty cool. So this will allow you to move large chunks of terrain. I don't know if I forgot to ask right here if there's a maximum selectable size. Although I'd be careful. If there isn't, I'd be really careful selecting large areas of terrain anyway, because you might lag your game out if you select an area that's too large. So let's look straight up again, because it's fun to move things straight up, and we'll move them up by like 2 blocks, and then we'll just like select a large area. Now it's a cuboid, so if I select a block down here, you can see it's going to move the 2 layers. So it's going to move all the blocks that inside the cube that you selected, although it appears that this aluminum gravel ore was in my selection area, but it didn't move. So this didn't move. So it may only move like actual like base terrain blocks like dirt and stone and stuff and gravel. So let's go ahead and just prove that it doesn't work. We're going to go ahead and try and move this repeater, and we're going to do that by right-clicking there and right-clicking there. Hey, it actually worked, but it didn't move the multi-ore repeater block itself. Okay, cool. So you can actually use this ability to move things like these basic blocks, but the multi-ore repeater block didn't move. So you're not going to be able to move pylons, and if you try, I think it's going to wreck the pylon, because what you're going to probably end up doing is it's going to move columns and engraved stone, and it's going to move runes, but you're not going to be able to use it to move this, the actual crystal pylon core. So don't do it. If this doesn't move along with the rest of it, you're just going to ruin the pylon. Then you'll have to move everything back and get it all in the right spot in order for it to come back to life, which would be really annoying. So don't do it. Be really careful. Now I just wrecked this, so we're going to go ahead and move it back. So I'll look this way, set it to 3, and then I will select these. Oh, it was actually 4. Darn it. Oh well. It'll work if I just move the repeater over. So there we go. Our network is still connected. So let's do something a bit more, a bit crazier. We'll select a larger hunk, but we'll continue to look up because it's fun. And we're going to go ahead and move it up the full distance, 24. So be really careful if you're going to move things this far, because it might end up seriously lagging or maybe even crashing your game. Took a while to load. You can see it moved all the blocks that I selected, although the water source blocks don't appear to have been moved. So, or they did, but now it's breaking or something. So there goes the waterfall. But it moved all those blocks up the distance that I selected. So again, world shift, very dangerous. Very useful. World shift will easily allow you to do things like terraform large areas. If you select blocks and send them into the ground, they'll just move into the ground, and then the area will get filled with air. So you can very easily terraform areas. You can move mountains literally, and of course you can also excavate by raising large chunks of land up, out of the ground to make it easier for you to dig them. And holy cow, this hunk of land was larger than I thought. Wait, what? Okay, so it looks like it kept... Okay, I screwed up the selection process because it selected all the way from over here. Alright, so... Okay, that was a mistake, and it was almost a bad one if that pylon had gotten caught in it. So be really careful using this. I just excavated this entire area of ground, moved it up 24 blocks. So be really careful when you use this. But that's World Shift. Really powerful abilities here, man. These are some powerful abilities. Now, it's probably going to take a lot of power to use this. I'm in creative mode. So you're going to need a lot of power of those 3 in order to use this. So I would definitely make sure that you use it responsibly. This is not a responsible use, although I can send these back down. So if I look straight down... Oh, darn it. That's going to be difficult. Let me fly up. So if I look straight down, give it all its full power again, 24. and then I select these blocks again. It selected this one, so I guess I should start from up there. I can put it back. What the? Oh, it already moved. Okay, so I must have already had the previous coordinate selected. But now it selected a larger coordinate. Okay, so I'm just making a mess of this place. Because what seems to have happened is that I had this coordinate already selected. So when I went and selected that one, sure, it moved everything back down, so it fixed this area. But it also moved all this down into the ground, which deleted it. So yeah, be really careful, because I'm screwing up the terrain with this thing. So probably not something you want to use on a server. If you're on a server that runs ChromatiCraft. This is a really powerful ability. Don't grieve people with it. Just use it. Use your power for good, not evil. So yeah, I just ruined the environment. I fixed that part of it, but now we got a big hole. But anyway, that's World Shift. So really powerful ability. Really cool ability. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to keep going over these abilities in future episodes. So we're just go down the list. So we've talked about these 4. So next time we'll talk about things like Instant Health and Arrow Shield and Fireball Source and Peace Broker. Easier abilities that don't take as much explanation. We'll probably get through more of them in an episode. But for this one, World Shift, I knew it was going to take a while to explain. So if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments. I'm sure that we can answer them, especially if Reika comments. And I hope you've enjoyed it. So like and comment the video if you did enjoy it. Go play some ChromatiCraft. I'm SentinalH, and I'm signing out.